All right, snack pack. All I wanted to do was make my first real dinner in my new apartment. Something simple, something cozy, something that made me feel like a proper 52-year-old woman. You know, the kind of woman that you like envision that's just like takes care of the home, pay the bills, decorate and all these things. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna totally do that. Because I can bring home the bacon, and fry it up in the pan. You remember that commercial? Do you remember commercials? Anjali. I just wanted to make my first nice meal, and especially because last month when I was staying with my parents for a week before I moved in here, my mom made a nice shepherd's pie. Now she knows how to make a nice shepherd's pie. My sister knows how to make a nice shepherd's pie. I've never made one, but they were like, oh, it's not that hard, just a few ingredients. And it's kind of decently healthy because it's just like meat, tomato soup, mashed potatoes, and then cheese on top. So I mean, it's not like the worst comfort food. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. And I just got a new cast iron pan. So I was like, instead of a casserole dish, I'm gonna get creative and I'm going to make it in the skillet and just put it in the oven. How hard is that? It's just like 4 or 5 ingredients. Well, I mean, technically it is, but apparently I did not get the homemaker gene. My sister did. I got my dad's adventurous dreamer energy, which is great in a lot of ways. And don't get me wrong, like I can cook-ish, but I just didn't get that homemaker gene. It just passed me right by. So anyways, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make this shepherd's pie. And I thought it was gonna take me like 45 minutes, you know? Bro, why did it take me like 3.5 hours to do this? It was like a whole marathon. By the time I was done, it was like I was all overheated. Everything was a mess. I was equally hungry, but equally like not hungry because of all the work I put in. I just wanted to like be done with it. Welcome to my new apartment by the coast. It's not going like I planned. All right, let's get into it. Here I am starting strong. I felt confident, I felt grown. I felt like someone with a Costco membership who does Pilates at 5:30 in the morning. But my first mistake was TikTok. I saw someone lightly cutting around the middle of a potato before boiling so that the peel will just slip right off, just like Shazam. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I make potatoes a lot. I could just do that and then I wouldn't have to spend my time just like peeling these potatoes right up front. So I'm over here cutting around all these potatoes just lightly and just making sure that it doesn't go too deep, but deep enough so that, you know, once it's all boiled, that the peel will just come off. All right, that's cool. Then I put them in the pot and waited. And, you know, you poke at them. You poke at the potatoes to like make sure that they're done. And there's a point where you can feel that the potatoes kind of done. Now, these potatoes were all different sizes. And the thing that I didn't take into consideration is when I usually peel them and then cut them up, they're all pretty much the same size. But when you don't cut them up into little chunks, they're like a small boulder where the outsides are getting softer, but the inside is still hard. But they seem soft, and I trusted the fork. The fork lied. Now, I will say the TikTok trick actually worked. If you let them sit for just a few minutes and let them cool down, then they slip off pretty easily. But I was impatient, pulling them off while they were piping hot and was playing hot potato, literally, and burned my fingers for absolutely no reason. And once the skins were off, that's when I realized some of them were not cooked all the way. This is not off to a good start. And you know, at this point, I should have cut them all up into little cubes like I usually do after I peel them. But I was like, okay, I have some bone broth that I could just boil these. And I didn't really think that through. I was kind of in a panic, so I grabbed the bone broth in the cabinet and I thought I'd give them a second boil, except I didn't have enough broth to cover the potatoes. So now some potatoes are drowning in the broth, some are sitting on the surface, and the ones in the bone broth start to get mushy while the other ones are staying firm. It was not the plan and it just was not working out. But whatever, I let them boil until the liquids were no more. And there was just like a level of mush in the pot. And I was like, this is so gross and I'm already turned off by this all the way. So once the boiled potatoes were in the pot, I was like, oh, how am I gonna make these into fluffy mashed potatoes? I was like, okay, I'll just use a fork. But because these were not really completely done, I don't have an immersion blender. I don't have anything to like make these into fluffy white cloud potatoes. So I was like, all right, what can I do to smash these? And I was like, I can use a small plate. So I took a few potatoes at a time, put them on my cutting board, and smashed them with that little plate. But the plate was super hot as well, so I was burning the palm of my hand every time I was smashing a few more potatoes. And I add some butter because, you know, you got to put the butter in first so that it starts to melt, because if you put the milk in first, then the butter, then it cools down the potatoes. I at least know that part. I put the butter in, stir it around, get that a little bit nice and creamy, but the potatoes were still kind of chunky. So, you know, I'm not the type of person that's gonna give up, okay? If I'm nothing else, I'm resourceful. So in my head, I was thinking, I don't have a hand mixer, I don't have an immersion blender, and then I was like, blender. You have one of those small blender cups. I mean, people don't really blend potatoes, but listen, a girl's gotta do what a girl's gotta do. So I got on my personal blender, I added some milk, scooped in a little bit of the potatoes, and blended. Now, I knew I couldn't do it too much or else I'm gonna have potato soup, which wouldn't have been a bad idea at this point, but I was really focused on making this shepherd's pie. Then I repeated the whole thing several times because I made enough potatoes to feed the state of California. I'd never know how many potatoes to use, and I'm just one person, but I was like, I know it's gotta cover the meat, so I just made way too many potatoes. Now onto the meat, the famous $19 meat. This meat cost so much that I prayed over it. I really had to pray extra because I kept delaying this recipe, so I was like, Lord, please do not let this beef go bad before I use it. Thank you for protecting this beef, in Jesus' name, amen, because I was like, if I have to waste $20 on meat, I'm just gonna go crawl under the covers and go to sleep. But before cooking the meat, I had to chop onions. Now, for those that have been watching this channel for a while and know me, you know I hate raw onions. Raw, white, crunchy onions, they're so gross, but I do love good cooked onions. But I'm not touching raw onions. I don't want my hands to smell like onions. I just don't like it. So you're gonna see me using a paper towel to hold the onions. Now I'm gonna tell you, sometimes I get those little gloves that you wash the dishes with to cut my onions, but I didn't wanna be too dramatic for this video. All right, so the meat fried up pretty nicely, and I could smell the liver because this is ancestral beef from the California farmers market. So you know it's gotta be special. It's got ground up liver and the heart is ground up in there too. You could smell the liver, not crazy, but you definitely could smell it a little bit. So it didn't fry up exactly the same way as just regular ground beef from the store, but it still fried up pretty nicely. And I seasoned it and got it all done. And then one tip that my sister told me is that you always have to drain the ground beef, because otherwise when you cook it, it's just gonna be too watery and the potatoes aren't gonna stick to it. So I drained the ground beef, which had so much oil in it, so I'm glad I did that. So I drained the oil, but I was trying to also keep the camera angle away from the rest of the dishes because I had already accumulated so many dishes by now, but I didn't want to show you guys that. And at this point in the cooking process, the kitchen looked like a vegetable crime scene. Food scraps on the counter, sink full of dishes, me sweating, my dream of being Susie Homemaker slipping away. I thought cooking in a new place would feel cozy, but it felt more like a workout to me. Now I put the meat back into the skillet and opened the can of tomato soup. Now, I did look for some healthy, clean eating tomato soup, but all the tomato soups that has like minimal ingredients, they had not great reviews. Like they were like, it tastes like ketchup, which is not the taste you want for shepherd's pie. You want like a literal tomato soup. So I used Campbell's like a true 80s child, because if it worked in my childhood, it could work in my midlife cooking crisis. And because I always end up mixing the shepherd's pie with corn anyway when I eat it, I decided to save a step and just mix the corn into the meat and soup now. I also know that a lot of people put like peas and carrots. I don't love that flavor in shepherd's pie, so I didn't put that in there. Now I had to scoop the potatoes on top, and honestly, the potatoes look like they came together. That blender and the plate combo did it. I was very happy about that, but I didn't want the pie bubbling too high, so I kept the potatoes as low as I can and wrapped the top with foil. I know, foil, not healthy, but we're doing our best here. Now into the oven it goes. And meanwhile, I was wiping potato flakes off the counter, off the cabinets, and even off the floor. Potatoes were everywhere. I think I cooked it for like 30 minutes, but I knew I had to add the shredded cheese. So I added that to the top, let it cook for a few more minutes, and then I hit broil for a little bit. But the cheese that I got was one of those healthy cheeses, so it didn't really kind of crisp up like I was hoping it would. Like it didn't really turn brown. It just kind of got melty, which is still fine. But I was looking for that little kind of browning look, but whatever. That's what you get when you use clean ingredients. But bam, this thing looks good. This looks like a food blogger made it. I mean, I'm not gonna go that far, but it does look pretty good, right? So here it is, a whole shepherd's pie that could feed 4 to 6 people, and I live alone. Why do I do this to myself? It only cost me $19 ground beef, half a day of my life, and a slight emotional breakdown, but I'm kind of proud of it and honestly impressed. The potatoes tried to kill me, but the final result's not too bad. Woo! Oh my gosh. Okay, first of all, it's late. I am so hungry. It doesn't really look like much. It kind of looks like mush, and it's piping hot, but I'm very hungry. It is piping hot. Little salty for my taste. I don't think I took into account that cheese is salty. Is cheese salty? Now, when I was actually cooking this, I could taste like the faintest of liver. It's not overpowering. Oh, good. I also smashed up some of those tallow fat chips. I think it might be kind of nice to have a little crunch on here. Mmm. Yeah, that's nice. That adds like more texture. Oh, I love that. That's a great addition. I don't think this is as good as my mom's shepherd's pie, but it is very good. Now, what I'm going to do with the whole skillet full for just myself, I don't know. But I think I could freeze it. Let me know in the comments, can you freeze shepherd's pie? I think you can, because it's like a casserole-ish kind of deal. I don't have all the tools, like mixers and stuff, but for my first attempt at making shepherd's pie, I think it turned out really good. So I'm going to give this 4 snack backs. It's not a 5, maybe like a 4.2. Like, I mean, I think it's pretty good. Dang. Give myself a little pat on the back. So this whole experience taught me something. Starting over in your 50s is a riot. You think you're entering into your calm, cozy, relaxed, put together era, and it's more so like a comedy of errors. And then a potato reminds you that you're still the girl who used to sleep in the backseat of a car eating french fries in a parking lot. I've done a potato diet a few times because potatoes are really dense and like they don't have a lot of calories, but you could eat them and they make you feel full. So I got this positive potato. It says, I may be a tiny potato, but I believe in you. Go do your thing. And this is just one of the little potatoes that I have in my house that encourages me. So even though I had a lot of trouble along the way, my shepherd's pie did not turn out too bad. Was it as good as my mom's? No. Would I make it again? Also maybe no, unless I get a husband. But listen, I'm trying to also learn how to cook better because I'm trying to pull me a man out here in these streets. And once I made the shepherd's pie, I sent a picture to my mom and my sister was like, looks great. Now all you need is a man. So, you know, they're still rooting for me. I mean, we're not there yet, but it's a good start. I'm proud of myself for even trying. So I'm gonna keep trying different recipes. I'm gonna try to make recipes that aren't so intensive. I thought this one would be pretty easy. Apparently not. I'm used to making things like spaghetti or tacos, like just basic things, not like casseroles. So I don't know. I need to just maybe do some crock pot situations. Some other casseroles that are easier to make. I think it's also hard when you're trying to make it with clean ingredients because it doesn't always work out exactly the same way. But I'm trying to do things for my health. And I'll probably talk about this in another video, but like, I just still believe in moderation. I think that there's times where you could just use basic things that might be slightly poisonous to us. We've had them for a long time, they work, it's whatever. And then there's times where you can use like the clean ingredient, no toxin, no GMO-y things, you can get the organics. I think you can have a combination of both. That's just my stance on life. You do what you want to do, but for me, I like to do moderation. All right, now it's your turn. Tell me your funniest kitchen disaster because I can't be the only one burning my fingers and praying over ground beef. And speaking of praying, I'm always praying for the snack pack. I love and care about each and every one of you. And if somebody hasn't told you today, you are loved and you don't have to do anything else to be worthy of that love. So until next time, bye for now. And I just got a new pass. It just makes me laugh because whoa, hot potato. So listen, come on, focus on the pie and sent a picture to my mom and sister. My mom was,
Snack time.